StarCraft 2 casts. Hello there, this is Hellas Feral People bringing you a 1v1 gold ranking StarCraft 2 match on this lovely, if slightly frosty, winter's morning. So, to begin, in the top left corner we have the Red Zerg, Atheotes from the European Gold StarCraft 2 ladders, and in the bottom right, also from the European Gold StarCraft 2 ladders, we have the Blue Terran, Joker. So, the map we're on is a Ohanna LE. The points of action to notice: these two Zalnaga watchtowers surrounding this large open area surrounded by scrubland. Good bit of cover for early scouting units here. You get a fair cloak from the coverland provided by these high grasses. So, both players opening up in the usual standard way, just producing all the SCVs and drones they require. We see Joker laying down his 10 supply depot, very standard Terran play, following the normal build order for most Terran strategies. Our Zerg player, again, nothing particularly special coming out of it. Apart from a snide little comment. I don't know what this is, might be playing mind games or trying to confuse his opponent. But even so, we'll see. Maybe Joker does have some jokes to tell us. Maybe he has some interesting strategies. It's one of the reasons I decided to cast a Gold League game rather than a Diamond League or Masters level game. Because often in those high-ranking tournaments you don't see a lot of unique strategies. You see the same build orders over and over again from these players who've risen to the top through their mastery of generic play. Sometimes, from the lower ranking leagues, you get games that are far more interesting, far more dynamic to play in. Right, as you can see, we've got a refinery now on the production tab going down, as well as the spawning pool. Probably a little bit late, but still well timed for a macro-based game at the 15-18 mark. Right, barracks almost complete. Second barracks on the way. This could be quite early Marauder Marine aggression, or we could be seeing a tech lab and early Reaper pressure. Either way, this could be potentially an interesting opening. We see the Zerg going for quite the opposite, a macro-orientated play. The first hatchery at natural coming down at the 16 mark. Spawning pool almost finished for Atheotes at the 17 mark. Overlord on the way to get him out of that potentially dangerous supply block. First Marine in production for Joker at the 19-19. Drone just poking around, as you do. It's taking a lot of hits now. Is this drone going to go down? No! It just escapes with one hit point remaining. This SCV desperate to finish the job, but it's probably not going to be fast enough to catch it as it flees on up the map. Right, we see Atheotes building a few static defences now. These spine crawlers probably going to walk down to this natural expansion once it's complete. But we don't see any gas yet. This could be indicative of one of two things: a heavy early Zergling pressure, or a second expansion in this early stage of the game. In contrast, we see Joker's going for his first factory, probably teching to siege tanks or early starport play, and has both of those refineries well and truly tapped. Tech Lab and Reactor going down on these barracks now. Again, a fairly standard addition. Probably going to transition into some Marauder production sooner rather than later, as well as plenty of Marines to support that early strength. We see that Atheotes is indeed going to be walking these spine crawlers down to the natural expansion, where they'll soon be routed. And a Queen is in production for both the finished production at the main base, and is in production at the expansion hatchery for the lava inject that I'm sure is to come. We see that the factory for a Joker is getting a tech lab, so siege tanks probably on the way. Considering Atheotes' lack of scouting, all he's seen is this just single barracks, not even with the tech lab attached. This could be a big problem, because he doesn't have many units that can effectively deal with siege tanks. One of the best ways for Zergs to take out siege tanks is lair tech, things like Infestors, Spire, and Mutalisks, but it seems that he has a very macro-orientated standard of play right now. If we have a look at the income tab, we see that Atheotes is producing 940 resources per minute alongside 27 harvesters to Joker's 23, but if we then look at the army tab, we see that Atheotes' 27 workers makes up almost all of his supply at 36 out of 44. Dual Evo chambers going down now for Atheotes. Again, there isn't any gas at the moment, so I'm not sure where he's trying to go with these two. Neither at the natural or at the main has Atheotes claimed any of these vents. So this could be a severe problem. As we can see already, there is a small, if potentially dangerous army building up here for Joker as the siege tech upgrades near his completion. We have combat shield also on the way at the tech lab on the barracks. And quite a heavy worker saturation. Let's have a quick look at that. Yep, he's almost got the top rank of workers. If you look, a full row, 2 full rows, and 1, 2, or 3 at the bottom usually means you've got a pretty good saturation spread. Finally, dual gas coming down now for Atheotes, extremely late at the 45 mark. This could be crippling, potentially. Both queens hanging out in the natural, also dual gas being taken here. It seems like our players just realised that he actually needs to claim some of that stuff if he wants the late game units, like Joker's already producing. Joker, however, very late also with his orbital command. Usually this goes down to 15 or 16 supply mark for Terran players. He's missed out on a lot of mule drops and orbital scans. His scouting's also been fairly limited. He's seen a second base going down, the dual supply depots, but little more than that, it seems. Roach Warrior on the way for Atheotes, probably not going to be effective against siege tanks, especially if they claim the high ground in that dangerous siege tech mode. We don't see any upgrades on the way for either player, Joker having no engineering base, and Atheotes probably not the gas. Yes, he has 320 gas income, but only 240 gas banked. Those upgrades will still be short and coming if he intends to produce a large surplus of roaches. Both Atheotes bases, though, looking pretty good. Probably needs a few more workers on that one. But otherwise, his saturation spread is decent. Spine crawlers taking up prominent positions at the guarding front of this large natural expansion. But here we go, we have Joker moving out now. 1 Hellion, curiously, with this army, largely constituent of siege tanks. We have them moving up now for what seems to be a main attack. Atheotes is going to see it coming. He's got 2 Zerglings sat here, but they're going to quickly go down to that Hellion's firepower. Zelmarga Watchtower quickly lost by our Zerg player. We have only, it seems, 2 Zerglings for Atheotes. 4 Zerglings for Atheotes. It's going to be very difficult to defend adequately against this attack with 6 Zerglings and 2 Spine Crawlers. Joker's army is constituent of 3 siege tanks, 8 marines and 4 marauders, more than enough to take out Atheotes' very macro-orientated play. We can see he's claiming a 3rd expansion at this site on the top right of the map. Again, Lair Tech now on the way for Atheotes alongside a surplus of roaches, several upgrades and the metabolic boost, also very late. At the 83 supply mark, all of these upgrades really should have been researched. Joker also producing the 1-1 infantry weapon upgrades. These tanks forcing any advances from our Zerg player back here. Large tide of Zerglings coming in now. Can they get the surround? They have the surround on a large quantity of these, but the siege tank support from the lower ground is going to be far too much for them to clear up. Siege tanks moving up into position now. Only 1 roach remains for Atheotes. 2 roaches, 3 roaches, and 2 queens, all that can defend against this attack. This looks like it's going to be a pretty game-ending scenario before long. Atheotes struggling to rebuke the attack. A few Zerglings probably not going to be enough to clean this up, or are they? Atheotes managing a decent surround on those tanks, and they are going to be taken down, but as we can see, back at Joker's base we have a starport coming along, engineering lab researching that 1-1 upgrades, and a large proportion of marine and marauders already on their way out to deal with this very vulnerable Zerg base. As we can see, Atheotes has a massive income advantage and harvester advantage over Joker. Joker's actually managed to cripple himself by only expanding now, at the 40 supply mark, into his natural expansion. Atheotes, on the other hand, has 3 expansions. 1 here, 1 at the natural, and of course his main base, which has very swiftly been saturated. 2-2 upgrades on the way for Atheotes now. No tech expansion though, I don't think. It seems like we're going to be... Oh no, a Spire now on the way for Atheotes. He still hasn't scouted Joker's base, as we can see, only having seen those 2 barracks and that tech lab. So this is probably a good preemptive action to move into Spire tech, considering Atheotes is beginning to produce medevacs for that MMM ball army we see so commonly in Terran mid-games. Large lot of overlords hanging out up here, not sure what they're doing, but there we go. Atheotes seems to have had some sort of blessed gift of the gods. Perhaps he knows about the predilections for Terran players doing Banshee rushes on this particular map, and so has decided to plan accordingly. We have a large ball of Zerg units down here now, quite a lot of roaches, all of the 1 armour upgrades, still waiting for that acid saliva to research. We've only got the 2-2 melee attacks on the way currently for these Zerglings, but all of which are at 1-1. Let's have a quick look at the work account. We've got 53 drones for Atheotes to 32 for our Terran player. Massive worker disadvantage on behalf of Joker. He's also got a lot of energy banked up on this orbital command. Usually, you want to be dropping as many mules and scans as you can in order to make sure that's not wasted. Armory going down for Joker now. He's either going for the tech upgrades. Oh, and a quick conflict going on down here. It looks like the Terran army is going to be cleared up by these roaches. Yes, all of the Terran Marauders going down that medevac, not quite enough to deal with this aggression. More roaches and Zerglings pouring into the natural expansion. This one siege tank very quickly taken down by these 1-1 Zerglings. Roaches now dealing with the SCVs at the natural expansion, and the Zerglings are pouring into Joker's base. 109 supply to 39, 2 more bases on the way for Atheotes. This is a dominating performance in this stage of the game. Most likely this is soon to be a GG. There we go. End of the game. Atheotes is our winner. So it's a fairly interesting Gold League game. Some pretty glaring errors actually from both sides, but hopefully educational in how not and how to play StarCraft 2. This has been Hell is for Other People. Thank you and good night.